Good afternoon out there, shopkeepers and do-it-yourselfers today in YouTube land. Today we're working on a 2003 Toyota 4Runner. It's got the big 4.7 V8 in it. Customer installed a new battery, that thing right there. And after they've replaced the battery, I don't know if it was stone cold dead or what the story was, but they put a battery in it, and after doing so, they said that the engine didn't want to idle and it was stalling at stops, and so I brought it over here and thought I would check the idle circuits. This has got the electric throttle body motor. It's not a cable, and so this does not use an idle air control valve like a drive-by cable would, and those the idle air control valve, I believe, is a not like a pintle valve, but actually a rotor that rotates, and those would get stuck. Those are more prone to sticking than a regular pintle valve. I don't think I've ever seen one that sticks, but they would build up in the seat with carbon, and that would cause a problem, and they wouldn't allow proper airflow. But anyway, so I took the throttle body off because, number one, I really couldn't get into it to see it, so I could, well, you can see all of that carbon in there, and that's obviously a problem. There's a little bit better look at it. You don't want to be too rough with it because of these coolant lines. I didn't want to unhook them, so anyway. But you can see that there's a pretty good buildup of carbon in there. We're going to get that cleaned out. And this right here is a port, inlet port for the vacuum line coming off of the PCV right there on the left side valve cover. Give a little bit of context there, and we zoom in onto it right here. It comes in this curve and goes into this elbow. This vacuum line here, and this hose is probably needs to be replaced. It's kind of brittle. It's hard anyway, but I'm going to take this off, these Phillips screws, and pull this nipple off of there and clean in there and make sure that all of that carbon is cleared out. You can open that throttle blade and insert something in one side of it to hold it open, so then you can take your cleaner. I like to use this brake clean in the green can. They're not a sponsor, but if they would send me a check, I would cash it. I wanted to remove this bolt right here, but I couldn't get it to break loose, and the threaded portion is too short to put two nuts on there and cram them together and loosen it. So I slid the radiator hose clamp around to give me enough room to kind of rotate that, get the hose underneath the bolt right there, like you see it's underneath there, and lay that throttle body up so it's kind of pointed up at me and I can get in there and clean it a little better. So we'll give it a good dousing and then kind of let it soak and begin to soften that carbon up. Then I'll take my Phillips screwdriver, take these screws out, take that nipple off. Those two screws come out of there pretty easy, and by the way, they're the same length. And as I'm talking about length, the two bolts that go in the bottom of the throttle body are both the same length, and they're 12 millimeter nuts, and 12 millimeter head. The hex head is also 12 millimeter on the bolt. And so we'll get this cleaned out real good. I don't know if you can see in there. There's a little bit of sludge in there, not much. Most of it's right there at the throttle blade. You can douse a rag and use that. Use a little bit less brake cleaner that way, but this you can kind of rub on that and start to break that softened up sludge out of there, carbon rather. I have a piece of this 320 grit sandpaper that goes on a orbital sander. I folded it over in half. It's kind of sticky, and we'll just take and throw that over there because we don't want to use any abrasive on that. That's a bad idea. You just want to use cleaner and a soft rag, and you can see that with just a little bit of wiping, it is coming off pretty easy. I'm not satisfied yet though. For one, we haven't got the top half of the bore. Okay, we got that I don't know what you'd call it, port. Call that a port for the crankcase vent. We've got that sprayed out good, and it goes through back here and goes in right there into the intake manifold. And you can see we've got the throttle body bore cleaned out real good and around the blade. And what happens is when you start the engine up cold, the computer will run this motor and open that throttle bore or throttle blade just a little bit and let a little bit more air in. That sets the idle speed up, and then as the engine warms up, then it begins to close that off, and it comes back to a certain learned position. It's called an adaptive memory. And if it starts and it runs with it at that position, and it learns that, well, when it's got a bunch of carbon buildup around it, you take the battery off and it's disconnected long enough, the computer will unlearn or lose its learned adaptives, which is the throttle blade position, where it might say, well, we're not getting enough air right here, so we're going to open it right there. And then when it loses its adaptive, it's going to go to like factory base settings or whatever, and it's going to close it, and it's not going to get enough air because it's got all of that buildup around there when it's not supposed to be there. This is where it should be, but because it's got all that carbon buildup on it, the computer makes an adjustment and opens that blade a little bit and allows it to get enough air. So if you was to start it and it keeps stalling, well, if you go to start it and put your foot on the gas pedal just a little bit, that would automatically open that throttle blade enough, and it would get enough air. But most people don't know that. So that's the reason for cleaning this, and I got it cleaned up pretty good, and now we're going to put it back together. I got that port back on there. I just used the same gasket. It wasn't broke. There's no need to go buy a bunch of parts. I mean, the gasket didn't break, and it's not a special gasket. Got the 2 screws back in, got the clamp pre-positioned, and get that hose put back on there. Squeeze the clamp, put it on there, and we're good to go. Shove that up on there. Put the bolts back in. Go ahead and start both of them before you go to torquing anything down. That way, if it ain't quite lined up, you don't have to loosen it to get the other bolt started. It's not rocket science. This is not going to the moon. This is a pretty easy job. Most anybody could do it. You got a 12mm socket. You could do it with a wrench, I suppose, but it wouldn't be quite as quick. And then before you turn the key on, you want to make sure and plug your throttle body control motor connector back in. I'll go ahead and do that. And then we don't want to run it with this pipe off because we'll get a code because of the mass airflow sensor. If you have a leak around here or in the course of that intake assembly, it won't meter air correctly, and you'll get a check engine light. And make sure that when you're putting these back on, you don't fold over one of these hoses. That's common. I see that all the time coming from a a place like, I don't want to mention any name, one of them quick lube places. Guys get in a hurry and they just cram it on there, and then it leaks and you get a check engine light. Now, I didn't use a 3/4 inch ratchet to tighten them bolts up. I just used my, what is it, about a 6/8 inch 3/8 drive ratchet with a good 6.12 millimeter socket, and just snugged them up. Just German torque specs, good and tight. That's all they need to be, good and tight. You don't have to, you're not compressing a head gasket here, boys. It's just an aluminum gasket with some rubber in there. So just good and tight, that's all you need. And we'll get the, I like when people do that. Look at that clamp. I think we'll cut that off. And we'll clean that up. I don't know why people do that. Anyway, now that hose clamp not sticking up there where it's going to gouge somebody in the knuckle, get the air intake tube put back on. Now when you're tightening these clamps, make sure the rings or the wire, I guess, is centered on the rubber. And don't get out your 1/2 inch drive ratchet. You know, I'm just using a little 1/4 inch ratchet there by hand. And you see I'm not up here out here on the torque end. I'm up here on the lightweight end. That's tight enough. That's tight enough. The same thing up here. Then it's all back together. And make sure that you got, there's a little vacuum line that goes down here to the, I don't know, I guess that's something in the power steering. I don't really know what, that's an idle up sensor. I believe that's what that's for. When the power steering senses pressure through that sensor right there, it causes the engine idle to idle up. So make sure you put that back on. And that hose is kind of hard too. It about needs to be replaced. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Share, like, and subscribe. Comment if you will. No jokes, just comments.